And we're in overtime right here. It is Monday night and preceding Monday Night Football, of course, wherever you watch that, whether it's at a bar, of course, it's on ESPN. You have this. And, of course, this is – I got to turn the volume down on my phone. I apologize for that. This is Overtime with Dan Borrello. This is my co-host this week, Joe Venniro. He's now the second-timer. Mark Ruba is the league leader. He's the three-timer. All right. And we've had Icy Vic on the show from the Huddle. We've had Scott Petoniak on. But second time, Empire 8 Associate Commissioner. How's things going, Joe?
Things are good. Things are very good. Busy time of year.
Right,
Great time of year for the sports calendar.
Well, October's a big month.
Yeah.
October's a huge month.
That's my birthday.
Yeah, I know. Happy birthday. Joe just turned 39 years old. Doesn't look a day over 60. You see what Sports Information's done for him over the years? He was the RIT Sports Information Director for a long time. He and Steve Janes doing a fabulous job. Did they just have the Brick City Homecoming recently?
Yes, they did.
It's the only time the Blue Cross Arena gets packed for a hockey game is when RIT plays there, which we'll get to that a little later. I actually won't spend much time on that. But let's talk about the main thing, of course. Let's just tell you who the sponsor is. Today's show is brought to you by 34 Rush. Thurman Thomas, 34 Rush in Batavia Downs, where things are hopping every night with over 30 HD screens, including a 15-foot main screen, food and drink specials, and live music on select weekends. Be sure to check out Facebook.com/Batavia Downs for more information on special events and promotions. And I gotta say this. I want to get my band in there. I want to get my band to play at 34 Rush. Get Diggler's Bridge in there. Cheap plug as always. But let's start with the main thing. Thurman Thomas used to play for this team called the Buffalo Bills, and he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, and first week of the season, we watched that game at 34 Rush, the crew at Rock Sportsnet, Joe, and Thurman Thomas watched the game with us. So what did Thurman Thomas say at halftime, then again at the end of the game? Run the football. And yesterday, the Bills, they didn't run it as much as they could have, but their opponents did. And yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles throttled the Buffalo Bills. You would have thought that the Eagles went into the game 5-1, and the Bills went into the game 3-4. Instead, the Bills are 5-2. The Eagles have righted their ship. They're only a half game behind in the NFC East. It was supposed to be a desperation game, but they didn't play desperate yesterday, and Philadelphia took it to Buffalo, and now you got to wonder, that Miami game, if that wasn't a wake-up call, is this game going to be a wake-up call?
You'd sure hope so. I mean, Philadelphia came right in and, punched him right in the mouth. It was interesting to see Buffalo get the lead, and then all of a sudden, with a blink of an eye, it's 17-7 Philly, and you kind of knew it's over.
I had that same feeling. Like, there was no way that Josh Allen was going to overcome this third quarter or fourth quarter or whatever. I've had this feeling in my life before when I'm a Yankee fan, and when Josh Beckett was throwing in the late innings of Game 6 of the 2003 World Series, there's no shot at hitting this guy. There's no shot. Yeah, the Yankees, the ghost, you could bring them all out. It wasn't going to happen. Or in Game 7 of the 04 ALCS, and the Yankees blew a 3-0 lead. I knew they weren't going to come back. And yesterday, I had that feeling that they weren't going to come back. And why is that? I got to be honest, Joe. I don't have that much faith in Josh Allen just yet. I've said it week after week on this show that I don't think he is developing as quickly as Bills fans would like. Is that an issue? They're 5-2 right now. Is that an issue for 2019 season?
It's an issue for 2019, but I think coming into the year, they weren't looking at 2019 as an 11-12 win season. You're hoping to get to 500, maybe a 9-10 win season if everything breaks right. And to be honest, with the schedule they have upcoming, it still should happen. But that being said, everyone was gung-ho for Baker Mayfield coming into this year, Sam Darnold, and look what's happened to those two quarterbacks. They've regressed big time, and maybe not so much with their play, but with the teams around them. So you got to always, with these young quarterbacks, you got to be cautious. Not everyone is going to be a Deshaun Watson or a Patrick Mahomes. And it's just not going to happen. You're going to have your lumps. So, the fact of the matter is they're still 5-2, and for as mediocre as Allen's looked at times, he still makes a lot of plays, and they're in a lot of games. So I think they're still all right.
But they're not putting the points on the board, though. You got to score at least 24 points a game to win the National Football League. You have guys like Matt Schaub throwing for over 400 yards in garbage time. You have quarterbacks out there like Daniel Jones throwing for 300 yards in his first game. And I'm not saying that Allen has to throw for 300 yards, but there's a reason why Brian Daboll still has the handcuffs on this kid, and they're still running design runs. By the way, it was a design run that led to the fumble, which led to Philadelphia taking the lead late in the first quarter, or late in the first half, and the Bills and Philadelphia not looking back. Now, I'm not going to blame the play call there. I'm going to blame Allen for coughing up the football, which he's done many, many times. But when people are saying, hey, he's not throwing interceptions anymore, so that's progress, I got to sit there and pull my hair out and go, no, they drafted this kid 7th overall. Now, the difference between guys like him and Lamar Jackson and guys like Darnold and Mayfield and maybe even Josh Rosen, who said there were 9 mistakes taken ahead of him. How's that working out, Josh? I got to tell you, though, there were more expectations on those guys. And if you asked me if those guys could flip a switch with the right coaching staff more quickly than Josh Allen, I would have to say yes. I'm not so sure Josh Allen could do that. I think if he's going to progress, his progression is going to be much slower. And I don't know if I can live with that as a Buffalo Bills fan. And I'm going to give you a reason why in just a second. But what do you think?
I think in the sense of Allen, you still have to preach patience. There's tools. He's got the athletic tools. He's got a great arm. He can run. But again, we sit there and we want these guys to be undefeated. You want them to do this. Jim Kelly took him a few years
different
to get
time
moving.
though. Different. I can't do that. It was a different time frame. I mean, when Ben Roethlisberger came into the league in 2004, and all of a sudden, like, he was winning, or when Tom Brady took over for Drew Bledsoe. And by the way, Brady then wasn't what Brady is become now. He was still a backup, and there was still a quarterback controversy at the end of the year when Brady got hurt in the championship game against Pittsburgh, and Bledsoe came in. Bill Belichick waited to announce his decision. I mean, there were still doubts. Brady didn't even make the playoffs in his second year as a starter, but he came on quickly. Matt Ryan came on quickly. Joe Flacco came on quickly. And now, I don't know if it's because in college the coaching's gotten better, but the schemes have become more efficient at scoring points, or more and more college teams aren't playing defense, so these kids put up more stats. But at the end of the day, I don't think they're as well coached, and he was playing at Wyoming. So, I mean, he wasn't getting much coaching, so I can give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But I look at Allen, and I look at this season and go, okay, look at the Chicago Bears right now. Last year, a lot of people were looking at the Bears going, they got this defense, and this Trubisky kid, just play within the game, and we'll worry about it. We got a good offensive-minded coach and Matt Nagy. We'll figure it out. And then they lose in the playoffs, and this year, he's been a disaster. And now the defense is like, dude, we give up. We absolutely give up. Do you want to look down the barrel of that? Because next year, that could be the case if Allen doesn't make some strides this year. And look, I'm looking at this team going, they're 5-2, yeah, second best record in the AFC, yeah. They'll probably make the playoffs. It's a good possibility. But I think they're going to make the playoffs and be a wild card team and play a road game because the AFC is so bad. And number one, I don't want to see this team get beaten the first week of the wild card season or the playoff season because that won't be fun. Secondly, you're going to go into next year, all is well. Kevin Bacon, Animal House, all is well. And we could have another Mitchell Trubisky situation next year. And I'm not looking forward to that. That's what I see out of Josh Allen. They're making design runs. They're calling design runs and these running plays with him because they don't trust him to throw that howitzer of an arm that he has. That's concerning to me.
Okay, what do you do then?
What do? You just do the best you can, I guess, and try to hope that you make the playoffs. But for crying out loud, I'd expect more out of this kid. To me, I said this to Mark Gruber last week. It's more important for Josh Allen to develop this year and find out what you have in this kid than making the playoffs because they're not winning the Super Bowl. Isn't that the ultimate goal? That's why you draft a quarterback. That's why you trade it out. That's why you traded out of 2017 when you had Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes sitting there. Nah, we're good. Next year we're going to get our guy, right? And now you got that guy. You traded up for him, and we're still waiting like patience on a monument for him to take that leap. Now, maybe it's still early, and he's only gotten, 18 games into his career as far as playing? But I don't know. I still don't know what this kid – is it the coordinator or is it Allen? I think it's Allen.
I think it's a little of both. I think they're so vanilla sometimes when it comes to the offense. And it seems like McDermott is that type of coach, as a head coach, that he doesn't want the flashy offensive coordinator. He wants to pound it down your throat. So I think that plays into it. And you saw yesterday, when they get behind, they're going to struggle to come back. They're not going to be that team that comes from 27-10 down to get it to 28-27 or something like that. They have to be, and you've seen that with Allen with what he's done so far. They're in a lot of tight games. And the one thing I'll say about Allen, when he's in those tight games, he normally does a pretty good job pulling it out. I mean, they've won. He's already had quite a few fourth quarter comebacks, so I'll give him that. I think they are
comebacks that he actually dug himself into. Let's not forget that either. They should have blown out the Bengals. They didn't do that. They should have blown out the Jets. They didn't do that. They'd have come back because Allen turned the ball over 4 times or several times against Cincinnati or against the New England Patriots. I mean, like he was giving or yesterday when he gave the Eagles the lead that they never relinquished. Right. So, I mean, that's the thing here. Like, it's not progression to protect the football. That's nice. Okay, that's like saying, hey, this guy doesn't cheat on his wife. He's a good husband. I mean, you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to turn the ball over. And that's where I'm starting to get a little nervous with this kid. Like Derek Buckholz just wrote in, watching live on Facebook at Rock Sportsnet, and he goes, at least he's not a turnover machine like Winston. Well, Jameis Winston, well, yeah, number one, he is. And number two, Jameis Winston, I would have more faith in Jameis Winston somehow trying to come back than Josh Allen at this point, because at least he could put the ball in the air and you could see what happens. They're not doing that with Josh Allen right now. And maybe it's just a right now thing. I don't know.
Yeah, again, I think you got to preach patience. It seems like Buffalo fans are so wanting that win, wanting this. I think they did the same thing with E.J. Manuel 5 years ago, where you still didn't really know what you had with him, and they ran him out of town so quickly. And it's like, patience. You spent a first-round pick on the guy. You can give the guy more than 15 games.
You think we're too quick on the trigger with these quarterbacks
Absolutely.
nowadays?
Absolutely.
Because of guys like Roethlisberger and Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco have come in and succeeded very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, Eli Manning didn't come in and set the world on fire either. I get that. And look, you've seen a lot of quarterbacks who were drafted in the first round the last few years not do that. I mean, Russell Wilson came in as a third-rounder, but Russell Wilson also ran the read option, and he came in at just the right time.
Right.
Now, real quick, because we got to go to break, but the Bills' defense laid an egg yesterday. Yep. And Brandon Potter writes in that the Bills are 0-8, or 0 for their last 8 games against top 15 offenses. So much for that vaunted defense. And, of course, last week was supposed to be the wake-up call game against Miami. Tre'Davious White bailed them out on 2 different occasions. Yesterday, you had a desperate Philadelphia Eagles team that ran screen passes, and Miles Sanders, who looked like, dare I say, Barry Sanders, running all over them, catching and running and everything else. And then they hit you back with Nelson Aguilar, who became a meme because of a dude who was rescuing people out of a fire saying, it's catching the kids, unlike Aguilar or something like that. This team was going through so much controversy this past week, and they came to Buffalo like, it's no big deal. And if your defense is struggling, your offense has got to step up. And I'm wondering, that hole in the middle, Star Lotulelei, he's become a giant hole. You're going to see more games where you're going to need Josh Allen to step up with that offense.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. I mean, the one thing you did see yesterday was the fact that they actually went up against an NFL offense for the first time in a while. I mean, Miami, let's be honest. Miami's not a very good team, and they're potentially going to get very lucky with Washington this week coming in. And so, I don't think it was as much of a surprise as people thought. So, and we'll see what happens this week.
I thought the Bills would lose, but I didn't think they would lose the way they did yesterday. We come back. We're going to ask a few questions, talk about the rest of the NFL. Bill Belichick winning his 300th game. We're going to start with this question. Which fan base should be most ticked off that Bill Belichick won his 300th game? I have one in mind, and it's not one you might think. We'll get to that. Of course, this is Overtime on the Rock Sports Network. It's brought to you by Lattimore Physical Therapy and Rehab. Lattimore currently offers 25 clinics throughout Rochester, including nearby locations in Pittsford and Webster. More than 50 certified physical therapists have experience in treating most conditions and sports injuries, and in most cases are able to offer initial consultations within 24 hours for your convenience. LattimorePT.com. This is Joe Venniro, the Associate Commissioner of the Empire 8 Conference. I'm Dan Borrello. This is Overtime on the Rock Sports Network.
Hi, my name is Henry, and I want to welcome you to Batavia Downs Gaming. We want you to love it. Not just like it here. We went to our customers and asked them what we can do better. You said you wanted a hotel, so we built one. More and better food. We did that too. A separate place to smoke and play? We even did that. Batavia Downs Gaming and Hotel is the right size with the right people in the right location. Batavia Downs Gaming. Come here to dine, stay, and play.
Only $7.99 for a Bill Gray's Great Plate every Tuesday.
Hi, I'm Zach Ralph. We've been selling cars for more than 80 years. We're family-owned, family-run, 3 generations strong.
Come see the 2020 Hondas. There's something for every lifestyle.
Whatever you're looking for in your next car, you'll find it at Ralph Honda.
If you're living with pain or recovering from surgery and don't know where to start, Lattimore Physical Therapy can help. The Lattimore Promise includes an individual diagnosis with a highly trained licensed physical therapist on your first visit, a personalized treatment plan, communication with your doctor, and a continued personal care plan. You're never more than minutes away from pain relief. Visit LattimorePT.com.
Lattimore Physical Therapy.
We're back at Overtime. This is Joe Venniro, the Associate Commissioner of the Empire 8 Conference. Good year of Good year of college athletics.
Always.
Coming up the Empire 8. And, of course, I'm Dan Borrello. This is Overtime. Thank you for joining me. Of course, this is brought to you by Bill Gray's Restaurant and Tap Rooms. Every Tuesday, that's tomorrow if you're watching live, and if you're watching on Tuesday, that's today. Every Tuesday at Bill Gray's, Great Plate Tuesday. It's just $7.99 for 2 Bill Gray's cheeseburgers on top of home fries and mac salad loaded with your choice of toppings, including Bill Gray's famous meat hot sauce. Great Plate Tuesday, every Tuesday. Gimme, gimme, gimme Bill Gray's. An old college professor of ours just wrote in on Facebook. He said we're two of his Fisher favorites, Dr. Jim Seward. I'm ranked in the top 5. He tells me you're about 18.
That's fine.
Yeah, you're about 18 right now. So, but you have a chance to before the end of the show to get up.
Maybe
in
I
the
get
top
to, maybe I get to 12 or
Yeah,
13.
maybe this could be like Michigan Notre Dame where I get knocked out of the playoffs. We'll see what happens. But you're a smart guy. So Bill Belichick just won his 300th game. And which fan base should be most ticked off about this? I know Bills Mafia is pretty upset. They hate Bill Belichick. But you'd love him if he were in Buffalo. But, I mean, who would if you're looking at the Patriots, who do you think has the most vitriol for Bill Belichick right now? Or maybe the guy who fired him, perhaps, the first time?
I think the Jets.
That's a good
I
answer.
think the Jets.
Now, explain to everybody the whole I resign as HC of the NYJ.
I'm trying to remember why. I remember watching the two Bills thing, but it was just a
30
bizarre,
for 30.
Just a bizarre situation. He was signed, sealed, delivered, and then he quit, and then he basically resigned.
I'm resigning right now. It was they're supposed to introduce him as the head coach of the Jets. It ended up becoming an I quit press conference, and he ends up going to the Patriots. And the Jets, of course, and the Patriots have had this, not really a rivalry, but a hatred for each other because Bill Belichick was ripped away from Bill Parcells. Parcells announces, he's done. Fax comes over from the Bob Kraft and the Patriots and says, we want to talk to Bill Belichick. And, of course, Bill Parcells sees this. He rips it up and immediately makes Bill Belichick the head coach of the Jets, which is hysterical because he didn't ask Bill. He just handed him the job. And Bill didn't want it. And now he's gone and he's built a dynasty in New England. He just won his 300th game. I can't believe it took him that long. But he's been coaching for a long time. I remember when Don Shula won his 300th game as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. I'd say one fan base that's ticked off. A lot of people say, well, Cleveland. Well, okay, you got to remember, this Cleveland Browns team is the second incarnation of the Cleveland Browns. The original Browns are the Baltimore Ravens. People forget that. And it was Art Modell who said, despite everything Bill Belichick tried to do with guys like Nick Saban on his coaching staff and Jim Schwartz on his coaching staff and others, he said, nah, we're going to go with Ted Marchibroda, wink, wink, who in a way was Bill Belichick's mentor. Marchibroda gets the job. And Vinny Testaverde was the quarterback, and Bill Belichick goes to New England. Now, who knows if what Bill Belichick did in New England as a coordinator, assistant head coach rather, with the New England Patriots changed the way he thought about games, thought about looking at tape. The knock on Belichick in Cleveland was he watched too much tape. He didn't spend too much time coaching, and maybe something changed along the way. But if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, I know you have 2 Super Bowls, but can you imagine Ozzie Newsome and Bill Belichick picking players and coaching? They may have had a couple of undefeated seasons. One thing about Bill Belichick, he's not the greatest drafter. He's a great coach. Now, that's hard to believe, but Ozzie Newsome was a heck of a general manager, and he even got the best of Bill Belichick at one point. So that combination could have been lethal, and the Ravens could have been the big dynasty. I think they're the ones that should be most ticked off that Bill Belichick, of course, got fired by Art Modell. And the guy he should be mad at is, of course, dead. But he brought in the franchise, so I guess they can't get too upset with him. But 300 games in the books for Coach Belichick's, God bless him. Next, Deshaun Watson leads the Texans to another late victory. Joe, we mentioned this earlier. Should Bills fans be more upset that the Bills decided to trade the pick in 2017 to the Kansas City Chiefs instead of taking Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, you can look back and say absolutely, but at the same time, Sean McDermott came out and said that they weren't prepared to take a quarterback. They didn't do their homework on the quarterback. So who's to say they draft one of these two guys, and with the coaching they had in place, who's to say those two don't bust? Either one of them bust. Being there. I mean, does Brian Daboll look like he could coach one of those two studs? I mean, you'd probably be running the ball 40 times a game instead of letting either one of the two show off the way they can play.
Rick Dennison was the offensive coordinator when that decision was made. And, of course, they cut bait with him. They stuck with Tyrod Taylor and, of course, went to Nathan Peterman at one point, and the rest is history. But the Bills decided that they believed their best quarterback class was in the class of 2018. And we'll get to that in a second. a lot of media and pundits weren't sure what they got in Deshaun Watson. And I said before the draft, I said, this kid reminds me a little bit of Donovan McNabb. You weren't sure what you had in him, but this guy, if he lived up to his potential, could be a great quarterback. Donovan McNabb's going to the Hall of Fame. He brought the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Deshaun Watson's done a heck of a job. Patrick Mahomes, most people had him pegged as a fourth rounder. He came out of Texas Tech. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at me funny like, so I read some draft boards where they had him as pegged as a fourth rounder. Then Andy Reid wanted him because he recognized his talent. But the knock on Mahomes at Texas Tech was that he played in the system, that he played for Cliff Kingsbury in that system, and that he was reckless with the football. That he didn't go through his progressions necessarily. He was a system quarterback. But to me, the debate wasn't Mahomes or Watson. To me, it was like Watson or look ahead to next year if you were a Buffalo Bills fan.
And you got to remember when Buffalo was picking there, it was a full rebuild. They needed pieces. They needed draft picks. And to be honest, given with what they did trading down to 27, I think it was, and they got Tre'Davious. I mean, he's been a heck of a player for them. They hit on that draft pick. There is always the what if. But I think given with what they did with that pick, I think they did quite all right for themselves. And then essentially they turned it into Josh Allen last year. So, I mean, obviously you see the two, either Mahomes or Watson, see them tear up the NFL right now. They both look like elite quarterbacks. There's no doubt about it. But like I said, who's to say either one comes to Buffalo and they don't flame out right away? You don't know. You just don't know.
You're right. You're right. You don't know. But we know what we know now, which is what makes hindsight so much fun. And I hate, like Tony Soprano, looking back is the lowest form of conversation. I understand that. But Doug Whaley, who didn't get to run the draft, but was reportedly wanted Deshaun Watson, but his opinion didn't count. And maybe Sean McDermott, looked at the whole situation, said, no, we're looking at 2018. This is a rebuilding year. And they happened to accidentally walk into the playoffs that year because, this year, the AFC was so stinking bad. I think Watson would probably be the play. You can't really look back too much, but sometimes when I watch this kid play and just, go ahead and beat Andre Fontenot's Raiders yesterday in dramatic fashion. Again, sorry, Andre, I know you're coming up next, but you had that McQuaid victory to, ease the pain over the weekend. You got to sit back and wonder. And I know Bills fans want to wonder about Mahomes, but to me, Watson, I think, was more of the play then. I think only a select few knew what Mahomes had. And even Mahomes had to sit for a year. He didn't come right in. He sat behind Alex Smith, so he had that luxury. So, speaking of the next thing, and Jeremy Sadak writes in, who's watching on Facebook, he goes, you're talking about guys like Matt Ryan and Big Ben making a difference. They had much better weapons and a better offensive line. That is fair. Mm-hmm. That is fair. They really did have better options to work with. But at the same time, when I see guys like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold showing you the potential that they can put up 300-yard games and then they fall back because of coaching or whatever, I look at Josh Allen and wonder, is this as good as it's going to get? That's all. Or are we looking at those guys and holding as Joe said, the standard too high for rookie quarterbacks that we need to reassess how much time they have to develop as a quarterback in today's NFL?
Yeah, I think that's the case. I just, it's great to come out and excel right away, but you're looking for some of these guys down to year 3, year 4. What can they do? If Allen's struggling by the end of 2021, okay, then we think he might be a bust. But I think you have to preach patience and let Allen develop. As McDermott says, trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process. He was the second guy. A lot of people have said that over the years. The Philadelphia 76ers, of course, trademarked that.
We'll look at the tape.
Yeah, right. We got to look at the tape. We got to look at the film. You mentioned it 3 times just during the post-game press conference.
That's code for we got smoked.
Let's go on to the next one because that brings us into our next topic. Class of 2018, which quarterback concerns you the most?
Oh, God. Right now.
You have Darnold, you have Mayfield, you have Josh Rosen. Let's just take Josh Rosen off the table right now. That situation, that's second incomplete in a row, and I don't know I think if the right coordinator got in touch with him, we could figure out what's going on with Josh Rosen. Then you got Allen, and you have Lamar Jackson. I mean, who right now is in the worst shape? Let's take Rosen out of the equation. That doesn't even count here. Let's take the other 4. Who's in the worst shape right now?
Darnold, simply because he's in New York, and I think Adam Gase is completely overmatched as a head coach, and that organization just cannot do anything right. It just seems, and given the mono, this and that, he's going to be fine. I think Darnold's a heck of a quarterback, but I don't think it's going to be with the Jets. I think at some point he gets moved somewhere or he ends up somewhere and excels somewhere else.
I don't know that Joe Douglas, who came from the Eagles organization, is going to move Darnold. I think he knows what he has. I think Adam Gase is on his way out. I think Adam Gase is on his way. I also think Freddie Kitchens is on his way out. To me, I think Darnold's ceiling is higher than Baker's.
Yeah,
I really
agree.
believe that. I think Darnold is a smarter quarterback. He's more measured. He makes better decisions. And I think that he has more potential than Baker Mayfield does. I truly believe that. Right now, at the very least, though, Baker Mayfield knows the situations he's in. He's trying to do the best he can. And he's got a little bit of swagger, and he's got weapons. Darnold's got nothing to work with here, and a head coach who's lost his freaking marbles.
And the thing with Baker Mayfield that's kind of interesting too, though, is, or with Cleveland in general, is the expectations were sky high. You know, you trade for Odell Beckham. Oh, it's Super Bowl or bust. And, you know, it's funny looking at the first half of the NFL season. I've never seen a year where scheduling comes into play more than this year. It feels like every week Cleveland's playing a very good team. Whereas you get a team like New England or even Buffalo, who it's like they play the bottom of the barrel every week. It's insane.
Cleveland's schedule's about to get a lot easier.
Yeah.
New England's is about to get a little tougher, and the Bills is going to be pretty much coasting until they get to teams like New England again, Baltimore later in the year. They have Cleveland in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think Baker at least is aware, even if he's not self-aware with his mouth. I think he's aware of everything going on around him. So I think where Darnold, you got him quoted saying, "I'm seeing ghosts on Monday Night Football," and that wasn't on him. Rookie quarterbacks, young quarterbacks have said that for years. This just happened to be on tape. Huge, huge faux pas by the Jets. So, I mean, to me, the situation that concerns me right now is Darnold's situation. I think he can overcome that. I think he could still be the best of all of them. I think Allen's, kind of plateauing, but as bad as Allen has been at times, Allen's never had a game like since he's been back from that injury against Houston. He hasn't had a game like Darnold had last week. He hasn't had a game like Rosen's had. He hasn't looked ridiculous like Baker Mayfield. His whole thing is carelessness with the football, and then, okay, can he become a better quarterback? So to me, he's kind of steadily, I don't want to say gotten better, but he's been consistent. More consistent, let's put it that way. And finally, who's playing the Super Bowl right now, Joe? If you had to take a guess who's going to end up in the Super Bowl, not winning it, but who's going to end up there?
I mean, New England in the AFC and in the NFC, after watching San Francisco yesterday, whoa. I'm dying to see this NFC race, how it shakes out, because in my mind, the 6 NFC playoff teams might be already set, and it's a strong 6. You can make a case for any of the 6.
A lot of people making the case for New Orleans.
Yep.
A lot of people make the case for Aaron Rodgers. Yep. But lastly, Matt Moore did take that defense to task last night. I think the 49ers have to be the obvious choice here. I know the Rams are in the same division, and I know Russell Wilson's in the same division, but man, it's not just
Seattle's not one of my 6.
I gotta be honest with you. The defense, Gary, our executive producer, is a huge Seattle Seahawks fan. He just defended him in his own house.
He's not one of my 6.
He just defended him in his own lair here. He's gonna have a Russell Wilson jersey hung up here pretty soon.
They're number 7.
But I'm looking at this and I'm going, who's beating San Francisco at this point? They have the offense, they have the head coach, and they have the defense. For crying out loud, and I think they could actually handcuff Sean Payton's crew late in the year. By the way, Drew Brees does go through a post-Thanksgiving swoon and has the last couple of seasons for Brees standards. So we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back. My friend Joe has these cliches that he likes to use. One of them is not for nothing, and then he tells you what he thinks. One of them is, what if I told you? Surprise, here's what I think, it is what it is. And the last one is what I just said. It is what it is. We're going to play a game based around Joe called Not For Nothing, What If I Told You, or It Is What It Is. I'm going to throw out a scenario, and he's going to start each sentence with one of those 3, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, this segment is brought to you on Overtime by Bob Johnson Chevrolet. Bob Johnson's goal is to give you the best deal on the best new or used vehicle possible. If you're not sure what you're looking for in a new car, truck, or SUV, stop by and talk with their expert sales team, and they'll help you figure out which model fits your needs and requirements best. Bob Johnson Chevrolet, Ridge Road West in Greece. You're in Overtime. This is Joe Venniro, the Associate Athletic Director of the Empire 8 Conference. I'm Dan Borrello, and you're watching us on Rock Sports Network.
Come to Bob Johnson's Scary Month of October and get your scary low lease on a 2019 Chevy Colorado for just $179 a month. That's $179 a month. Come to Bob Johnson Chevrolet.
Bill Gray's newest tap room at the Port of Rochester is now open.
If you're living with pain or recovering from surgery and don't know where to start, Lattimore Physical Therapy can help. The Lattimore Promise includes an individual diagnosis with a highly trained licensed physical therapist on your first visit, a personalized treatment plan, communication with your doctor, and a continued personal care plan. You're never more than minutes away from pain relief. Visit LattimorePT.com.
Lattimore Physical Therapy.
Hi, I'm Steve Ralph. We've been selling cars for more than 80 years. Our best values are available right now at Ralph Honda.
Come see the 2020 Hondas. There's something for every lifestyle.
Whatever you're looking for in your next car, you'll find it at Ralph Honda.
You do say those all the time.
We're just joking about the next segment. This is the Overtime Show. I'm Dan Borrello. This is Joe Venniro. Watching on Rock Sports Network. Joe's the Associate Commissioner of the Empire 8 Conference. This segment brought to you by Ralph Honda, ranked number 1 in Western New York for overall customer satisfaction. See how we do Honda right at Ralph Honda. See the 2020 Hondas arriving daily at Ralph Honda, including the Odyssey, Pilot, and Civic. A short drive to West Ridge Road at Elm Grove and online at ralphhonda.com. Time for our newest segment, which we can only do with Joe Venniro here because he has 3 cliches. He's actually got several, but he always starts certain sentences with the same 3 phrases. Either, not for nothing, what if I told you, or it is what it is. So I'm going to throw out a scenario, and he's going to start each of them with a different catchphrase. The first one is, baseball, Joe, is losing momentum in the national sports conversation.
It is what it is.
Meaning, it is what it is. Go ahead.
Meaning that baseball has record revenues.
For now.
The game seems as popular as ever.
For
but
now. No, it's not. It's not as popular as ever.
Well, as long as Washington's not in the World Series,
It got beat by Sunday Night Football last night by 6 whole ratings points.
Well,
16 million people watched football, and that was down 14%. 10.2 million watched the World Series, game 5.
Yeah, well, not for nothing. Major League Baseball doesn't have the issues the NFL has.
What are those issues? Making too much money?
Concussions, bad
Justin
refereeing.
Morneau's career ended because of a concussion. Clint Frazier had a concussion. He missed most of the season, and they demoted him down to the minors. Concussions happen in baseball, too. They don't happen as frequently, okay? But the NFL's not going anywhere. Like smoking. It's not going anywhere.
I understand the NFL's not going anywhere.
But, I mean, like, let's talk about the World Series for just a second. Do you care?
Honestly?
I don't either. I care when the Yanks are involved. A lot of people care if the
I
Yankees are involved, one way or the other.
I do care. It's just been, I think, what's hurt baseball recently, it's just these last 3 or 4 games, 4-hour games. And it wasn't like the Game 6 of the Yankees-Astros where it was a 4+ hour game, but, you had all the twists and turns. These games are 7-1, 8-1, 4-1, and it's just, I don't know what's going on, why they're taking forever.
You can't predict baseball, Susan, as John Sterling used to say. Driven by G. Let's go to Not For Nothing, What If I Told You It Is What It Is. Last night, speaking of baseball, a fan taking a home run ball to the chest so he wouldn't lose his 2 Bud Lights. Did you see this in the outfield? Jordan Alvarez hits a bomb, and this guy's holding on to his beer and taking a home run ball to the chest.
What if I told you he became an internet meme because of it?
Or an internet hero.
Yeah.
Somebody's posted today. He is who leads us now.
I thought it hit him in the belly more than anything.
But it hit him. I mean, that's kind of tough.
I've tried to catch a foul ball barehanded. It hurts.
Yeah, it's not easy. And by the way, I didn't catch the ball in the World Series. A lot of guys have caught balls in the outfield during baseball games or World Series. Right here, as we show on the monitor, this dude took it right in the rib cage, man. Held on to his beers. He's more famous than anybody. A ball was hit to outside Jeffrey Mayer in the postseason.
I mean, those are $15 beers. I wouldn't want to drop them either.
Can I tell you something? I went to Miami last year. I spent $66 plus $4 in tips on 6 beers. 6 beers.
Yeah.
Bills Dolphins game. 6
Trust
beers.
Me, that's where they make their money.
No, I didn't drink them. Those for a friend. But in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, like, that's expensive stuff. And, like, what can he do? He can't put him down because he'll lose the ball. So he's got to just sit there and just, take it. He can't. He's just stuck, And what if that ball hit him in the head? So we salute you, sir, for taking one for the team. So not for nothing, it is what it is. Sticking with last night's game, because baseball's become a side story sport, 2 models flashing Garrett Cole last night before he tried delivering a pitch. I'm not joking about this.
Not for nothing, but good for them, I guess. I don't know.
So Julia Rose and Lauren Summer are what they call IG models, Instagram models. There's this whole cottage industry of women just taking off their clothes and becoming famous. In the Kardashians and, of course, Paris Hilton doing that. And let's be honest, it is a form of, the oldest profession in the world. And last night they were banned from Major League Baseball for life for doing this. Now, do you think the ban's a little harsh?
First of all, I'm sure they could disguise themselves to get into other stadiums and do the same thing next year.
I don't know if they have that face recognition technology.
Yeah.
People have been caught. My point is this, though. I mean, baseball needs all the help it can get. Now, what they did, I'm sorry, you can't do that on national television, but they did it to be more famous. Now, Lauren Summers says she did it for breast cancer awareness.
Okay.
Ladies, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? I'm sure she did, but the attention they're getting of this from this is going to far outweigh the price that they're paying of not going to a Major League Baseball game. Heck, have you been to an Orioles game recently? Great seats and great sections available for teams like that, the tank. And finally, I got to ask you this. Not for nothing. I'm sorry. Not for nothing. What if I told you it is what it is? The Mets deciding they don't need Joe Girardi or Buck Showalter to skipper the club next year. You're a Mets fan.
Yeah. I'm going to go with not for nothing. I don't know what the heck they're doing. I'm not worried about Showalter per se, but I thought Girardi was the guy.
Pat Murphy?
Who knows?
Who the hell is Pat Murphy?
I've heard Eduardo Perez. I've even heard A-Rod. I've even heard Jessica Mendoza.
You heard come on. Jessica Mendoza managing the team?
It's not going to happen, but
No.
I heard it.
You got to have somebody. I'm sorry. We have got to go back to the days where there's a real skipper in the clubhouse who's paid his dues and deserves to put the uniform on, not a GM who's running the manager like an app. I can't stand it. What has Brody Van Wagenen done to prove that he can run a baseball club, let alone not have a real skipper in the clubhouse? And not only did the Mets lose Girardi, they lost Girardi to the Phillies.
Yeah.
Who were also a sabermetrical-driven team and said, you know what, we need a real manager in there. Someone to control Bryce Harper. Someone to teach, to make JT Realmuto a better catcher. He didn't take any crap. Not like Jim Harbaugh. He wears people out. But I would much rather have him in the clubhouse running the show than Aaron Boone still.
I always say Girardi got a raw deal in both Miami and New York.
He certainly did. I got to ask you this, real quick. Not for nothing. What if I told you it is what it is? The Buffalo Sabres hot start. You're a big hockey fan. I'm not. What do you think about this?
What if I told you they might actually be decent?
I think they are.
You got a top 15 player in the league in Jack Eichel, and he's playing like a top 15 player. All of a sudden, your goaltending's been outstanding, and your defense is not as much of a train wreck as it was last year. So all three of those things have correlated into a great start for Buffalo. And I know they're up early tonight. I know they had a bit of a rough weekend. Luckily, Lena Selmark bailed them out. I think it was Friday night. They're going to go through rough patches. It's an 82-game season. You're going to struggle from time to time. They're still a very young team. But you're winning. You're off to that great start, and you have a leg up right away when it comes to that.
I think Ralph Kruger has injected some new life into this team. Now, I'm not the biggest hockey guy in the world. I can't tell you what it is, but it sounds like the players like playing for him. Things have been going well. Now, hopefully this isn't a fluke like last November, and we're now just reaching November. So the Sabres are gaining some momentum here. Like I've said before, don't get too excited until January. Let's wait until January, see what this team really has. Last year you saw the St. Louis Blues in last place in their division in January. What happened? They go on and they win the Stanley Cup. A lot can change in hockey, but Ralph Kruger's injected some life into this fan base, and it's pretty cool. Maybe Jason Botterill knew what he was doing after all. Rumor had it he wanted him a couple years ago, but Kruger had his contract with his soccer club overseas that he was running. Yeah, he's a two-sport guy. You thought that was just Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson. This guy's a two-sport guy. So by the way, Vanessa Cardinal writes in on Facebook that with the face recognition technology with the Instagram model, she says, quote, it wouldn't be their faces that the technology would be recognizes. Pretty good. You could tell you're a Fisher grad too, Vanessa. So we're going to take a little break, come back with my favorite segment every week called Overtime Rules, much like Bill Maher's New Rules. I just throw out a new rule every week, or several new rules that I think should be implemented in sports, and I'll get my friend Joe's reaction coming up next. You're watching Overtime. I'm Dan Borrello. This is Joe Venniro, class of 2002 at St. John Fisher, and you're watching Overtime on the Rock Sports Network, rocksportsnetwork.com.
Hi, my name is Henry, and I want to welcome you to Batavia Downs Gaming. We want you to love it, not just like it here. We went to our customers and asked them what we can do better. You said you wanted a hotel, so we built one. More and better food. We did that too. A separate place to smoke and play? We even did that. Batavia Downs Gaming and Hotel is the right size with the right people in the right location. Batavia Downs Gaming. Come here to dine, stay, and play.
Hi, I'm Zach Ralph. We've been selling cars for more than 80 years. We're family owned, family run, 3 generations strong.
Come see the 2020 Hondas. There's something for every lifestyle.
Whatever you're looking for in your next car, you'll find it at Ralph Honda.
Only $7.99 for a Bill Gray's Great Plate every Tuesday.
You're in overtime. I'm Dan Borrello, and this is Joe Venniro, the Associate Commissioner of the Empire A, and of course Gary Sadak, the soon-to-be grandfather, producing the show, the executive producer of the Rock Sports Network. Thank you for joining us. My favorite segment of the week. We got the guys from the Ozone Show warming up in the bullpen. They're coming up next at 8 o'clock. But this is overtime rules, where I throw out new rules that I think should be implemented in sports. Of course, they are kind of tongue-in-cheek, but they are kind of serious too. So let's get right to it. Overtime rules. It's not that your coach's fault if your field goal kicker can't kick a 41-yarder to win the game. Yesterday in Chicago, tight game with San Diego. I'm sorry. The L.A. Chargers.
I still call them San Diego.
They're like homeless. It's ridiculous. Anyway, they send their kicker out to kick a field goal. And it's before they do that, on first down, they had their quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, who's awful, take knees instead of throwing the ball or running the ball. And he was asked about it after the game and questioned about it. Why didn't you try to get closer after the kid missed a 33-yard? If you can't hit a 41-yard in the NFL, I'm sorry, but the coaching's got to stop at some point.
I don't know. I watched a lot of that game on Red Zone yesterday. That was an awful football game to watch. Like, 2 supposedly really talented offenses. They must have had 7, 8 shots each in the red zone, and I couldn't tell you how many times they came up empty, or just really bad. And I mean, Chicago, Nagy, everyone thought he was the next great thing last year, and this year, my word, are they mortal. There's no identity with that team right now.
By the way, somebody from the last segment, Keith Fox, wrote in, not for nothing, the Yankees need to get Garrett Cole next season. No kidding. No kidding. New rule. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was an awful game. Phillip Rivers, oh, my goodness. And then Mitchell Trubisky, overshadowed by Mitchell Trubisky. At least Rivers won the game. But Mitchell Trubisky, Matt Nagy didn't trust his quarterback or his ground game to get any closer. That's how bad it was. Yeah. Your field goal kicker should be able to make a 41-yarder.
But at the same time, we're sitting there not blaming Nagy, but why couldn't you get closer? Why didn't you try getting closer?
His explanation was because if you run the ball, they know you're running the ball, you're going to lose yardage anyway.
Play action.
If you throw the ball, too many things can happen. He didn't trust his quarterback. That's what it came down to. He's got to coach this way. Bills fans, if Josh Allen doesn't get better, guess what? Next year you're going to see the same thing. Oh, by the way, yesterday Josh Allen took a sack, which could have led to a 41-yard field goal, and the Bills decided to go for it because of the wind. And what happened? John Brown ran the wrong route, and the Bills never recovered. So, think of those things. When you can't rely on your quarterback, those things are going to come up in coaching, and you're going to have some decisions that are going to lead to miscues. And it's not going to be your fault. You're just doing the best you can. Overtime rules. How about leaving the draft to the pros next year? Look at all these quarterbacks who some are good, some are not. Everyone's a freaking expert. Did you know this, Joe, that half the NFL players weren't even drafted, and the other half were drafted in rounds 1, 2, or 3? It's rounds 4 through 7. Guys are going to get selected who aren't even going to get to the NFL, not even going to play.
But that's where these good teams end up making their bones, is when they draft those guys in rounds 4 through 7 that become all pros or consistent starters.
A lot of it could be just guys getting coached up too. But man, we put so much of an emphasis on the first round of the draft. Okay, and then all of a sudden, like nothing. And then about this time of year, you got some jackass from ESPN.com, whatever, going redrafting the 2017 draft. No, that's not fair either. But can we just leave the draft to the pros? All right, overtime rules. Andy Reid needs to hire a clock manager. Did you see this last night? And he's done this for years. Okay, over 4 minutes or 5 minutes left. It's 4th and 1. Ball's on his own 40. Matt Moore's his quarterback. You know what? We're going to give the ball to Aaron Rodgers. And yeah, they punted it to 2, and they never got it back. You're going to use the clock at this point, Andy. You got to hire a clock manager. You got to trust Matt Moore to get that first down, because you don't want to, especially with your defense, which is atrocious. Come on. Aaron Rodgers looked like the best Aaron Rodgers we ever saw last night.
Yeah, I thought Rodgers.
He made his running back look like an all-pro.
I'll tell you, that pass to Jones and that move he made, the afterburners that Jones showed was unbelievable. He caught it, and you had a feeling he was going to break it for maybe 20 yards. And next thing you knew, he put in another gear, and he's gone.
Aaron Jones had a tremendous game last night, and it sounds like Aaron Rodgers is finally in a happy place now in Green Bay, which he wasn't with Mike McCarthy.
Being 6-1 helps too.
So, overtime rules. Inadvertent whistleblowings by officials need to be held accountable by holding a press conference afterward and facing a firing squad of questions. because you could fine them. They could go back, and they'll still come back and officiate games, or they could quit. They have regular day jobs and everything else. You need to embarrass these guys into getting these calls right, because that's an inadvertent whistle is ridiculous, and it cost the Buccaneers a win yesterday.
The game is just too fast. I'm sorry. I think the game is too fast. I mean, really. And don't get me wrong, that was inexcusable. They why blow it dead so early there? But we sit here and we look at 17 different angles of replay to see if a guy's elbow was down or the ball dropped on the floor, on the ground. It's insane how quick the game has become. That I just think it's very hard to be a referee in today's game.
But it's happened several times this year, and it's cost teams points. It's cost teams games. And, I'm sitting there going, like, you got to feel bad for Tampa Bay. They already have to live with Jameis Winston playing a so-so game every week, and then he has to, bring his team back. The Buccaneers had a chance to beat a beatable Tennessee Titans team, and they made a heck of a play on a fake field goal and could have run it to the house, and were deprived of that opportunity based on a whistle-blowing official. So I understand referees make mistakes, but holy cow, man! Why is it always late? Why is it always in the trenches? So overtime rules. When your offense turns the ball over 3 times and your team gets destroyed at New England, Browns fans, when you present the greatest quarterback ever with a pair of goat hair Nike cleats after the game, your quarterback is allowed to punch you in the freaking face. Did you see this picture yesterday? So Odell Beckham Jr. said all week he wanted to give Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, the GOAT, a pair of goat hair Odell Beckham Jr. cleats. So, of course, he does it with cameras on him to present it to him after the game. And Baker Mayfield's looking at him like, are you freaking serious right now? Are you freaking serious? And I think Beckham kept his helmet on, probably for a reason, because I think maybe Baker may have knocked him the F out after this. Odell Beckham Jr. is trying to, latch on to Tom Brady's star here. And if Brady, of course, who looks pretty clean, is like, yeah, thanks for the kicks, man. I'm still winning Super Bowls, bro, and you're going to be forgotten about in about 2 years.
Maybe Beckham might be a Patriot next year, the way he's going.
It could be.
He's become an average wide receiver at best.
At best. I still think he has potential and the talent. Not potential. He still has ability. He can still catch the ball. He still made a nice little grab yesterday, but holy cow, it's just not working out in Cleveland right now. Overtime rules. Ohio State and Clemson need to move to the SEC, and everyone else can fight over winning conferences and crappy bowl games. But my goodness, Ohio State is head and shoulders above the Big Ten, which is an absolute joke. And Clemson, of course, is Clemson. Oklahoma yesterday, or this weekend, lost to Kansas State because, hey, nobody plays defense in the Big 12. Remember Lincoln Riley? All offense, no defense. Why don't you just take those 2 teams, put them in the SEC, and let's just watch them every season, because college football is pretty bad as it is, but at least there's good games in that conference with good teams. Let them fight it out. That'll never happen. But, my goodness, Michigan, throttled Notre Dame. Well, I guess Michigan's back and Notre Dame's out. No. Well, college football is a better place when Notre Dame is good. I'm a Michigan fan. I actually rooted for Notre Dame for the sake of the sport. And what happened? They got throttled over the weekend.
Why does everyone have this mythical false with Notre Dame?
I don't love Notre Dame. I'm not a Notre Dame fan, but people pay attention. They watch the sport when Notre Dame is there.
They're caught in the 70s and 80s here.
Maybe you're right, but the numbers, they're still on NBC, still drawing that dollar. Overtime rules. And I mean this as a born-again Christian. I mean this sincerely. We've got to stop preaching to people walking into the Blue Cross Arena before sporting events, concerts, or pretty much anywhere. I saw this at Brockport over the weekend, too. Brockport, of course, had a big win in football over the weekend. And I'm driving back to Rochester for a doubleheader to go to Fisher, and I'm seeing people holding up signs. And it's like, look, you want to win people to Christ? Go to a hospital, because you'll have an audience, and they'll listen to you. No one wants to hear it walking into the Blue Cross Arena on a Friday night. For every person you think you're leading to the Lord, there's about 3,000 who don't want to hear it. It wasn't Amherst game that I went to. It wasn't RIT, sorry. It wasn't 11,000. But you get my point here, okay? And I say this as someone who's read the Bible 7 different times from cover to cover. Jeremiah and Ezekiel had an audience. Jesus had an audience. Paul and Peter and John the Baptist and John the Revelator all had audiences. You screaming your lungs out on the corner of Exchange Street, you don't have an audience. You're just pissing people off, and they don't want to hear it when it matters most. So stop. Speaking of hockey, overtime rules. If you want to call yourself a hockey town, sell out a hockey game. And no, the Brick City homecoming doesn't count. Those are all RIT fans. I'm talking about a pro hockey game. Sabres are doing well, and the Amherst are doing well too. But I see most people at that arena dressed up as blue seats. 20 years. How many games have you sold out? You couldn't even sell out when the Sabres played Brian Jonta with the Devils, and that was 3 jerseys ago. Tom Golisano didn't bring a pro game back to Blue Cross Arena for a reason, because you couldn't sell that one out. The Red Wings still sell out a baseball game or two a year. I'm not saying you have to sell out every game, just one a decade, and stop calling it a hockey town until you do. I think that's fair. You're a hockey fan. Is Rochester a hockey town? Can it call itself a hockey town?
It has its moments.
Because it's produced several NHL players?
It has produced.
They have, but, I mean, where's the support? And
That starts with a new arena downtown, somewhere besides Exchange Street.
And finally, as we learned last night, overtime rules, fellas. If your girlfriend is still taking countless Instagram photos in a bikini after you started dating, you may want to look for a new girlfriend because you may be in trouble. That's going to do it. This is Overtime. Thank you so much.
You're just getting old.
Yeah, this is Overtime, and this is Joe Venniro. I'm Dan Borrello. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back, God willing, next week right here. The Ozone Show is coming up next. Andre Fontenot may be talking about McQuaid for the first 50 minutes of the show, we hear. So, yeah, he's not going to talk about David Carr, though. We know that for a fact. That's coming up next. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week here at 7 o'clock, Monday nights, Overtime on Rock Sports Network, rocksportsnetwork.com.